Greetings and salutations. This time around, we have Daca Gaming representing the Pubg All-Stars tournament that's currently ongoing and with a lot of influences on the table as well. Daca, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Manuel. It's a pleasure to be here.
That's always nice to hear. So, Daca, can I call you Daca? What's the
Yeah,
normal
that's
term
perfect,
that people call you? All right. Give us some insight in terms of what Pubg All-Star tournament is.
So it's actually a very, very unique type of tournament. So PUBG, anyway, like any other game, is very famous for having its tournaments internationally and locally as well. But anyway, this event in particular brings together the entire South Asian region, along with not just the players from the top level. It also brings the influencers as well. So anyone who has done anything in terms of PUBG Mobile or are big influencers in their respective country, they've all come together to take part in this tournament. So it actually has quite a big impact in terms of esports in South Asia as well. And it has definitely, like, obviously it's a great thing hitting Sri Lanka as well, because that way we have a way of getting onto the map in terms of our esports presence as well.
And I've heard that few influencers from Sri Lanka side joined the party as well. Who are they? Like you are obviously one of the most wonderful hosts that we have from the Sri Lanka side as well. So who are the influencers from Sri Lanka that are taking part?
So it's actually two Sri Lankan influencers who are very, very well known. Obviously, one is Mania. I think everyone knows when you say, you know, who Mania is. Definitely, I think he, of course, in terms of him taking part, the only thing that he was a little bit uncomfortable with is the fact that he had to play on the mobile, because he's usually a very vivid PC gamer, and he really likes, being very entertaining to his audience. So don't worry, that will definitely be there in the event itself. You guys can check that out when possible. And the other was actually Hashano, also known as Tahik. So he's also a very, very big entertainer, and he does multiple games as well. When I got to know him, he used to stream PUBG Mobile a lot, but now he has definitely basically rooted out into a lot of other games, including PC games and variants of games anyway. But he's also a very entertaining influencer for sure. And he was obviously a little bit more comfortable, but he also, because they usually stream, it's easy to set up the stream and do it on the emulator rather than on the mobile. So on that front, people at a little bit of a disadvantage, but overall, those will be the two influencers we did have taking part.
That's understandable, because like even a lot of players usually approach this game through emulators, because mobile gaming has a bit of a thing going on with a lot of PC gamers anyways. But either way, I want to know, so how did this opportunity come about? Because this is international, with like the Southeast Asia as a whole taking part in it, right? How were you guys approached about this?
So actually, the official Tencent company, so Tencent is the company that basically, how do we say, it runs PUBG Mobile, or even created it to an extent. And basically, they reached out to In-Game Entertainment, which is now currently working as a South East Asia agency. So don't quote me on this. It could be inaccurate, but from what I heard, they are currently working as an agency. And they were contacted through them, and they wanted a few influencers for this event. And through that only, we were connected to the event.
That actually sounds like a nice way to go about it, because not most of these tournaments, the problem is there's not official support backing from the main company that developed the game in itself, right? And Tencent is making moves these days, from what I've heard, with them releasing PUBG for free in a few days as well. So there might be a chance that we might get a couple of tournaments around the PC version of PUBG with the same amount of Southeast Asian exposure as well. Do you think there might be a chance, just outside of the event itself? I just wanted to ask you.
In my personal opinion, I think PUBG Mobile is PUBG PC currently could be a little bit outdated with the introduction of certain new battle royales, basically. So, and I think the one that is definitely the more PUBG, like the PC version, I think the new game came out called Super People. So that is very, very similar to PUBG PC, and I think that has really picked up. So I don't think there'll be a huge impact in terms of PUBG PC in Sri Lanka, and also because the fact that even if they were to have tournaments, it would have to be online. In terms of other countries, obviously there is a difficulty getting 100 PCs of the same quality, which is the biggest issue when it comes to battle royals in Sri Lanka in general, as a esports side of, and anyway, I don't think we had a LAN tournament in the last 2.5 years. So yeah, so anyway, if it's online, I think we might see minimal participation, but not as big as PUBG Mobile.
So the reign of PUBG Mobile will carry on for years to come from the way things are going, and it's making waves as well. I wanted to ask, so the videos are coming out consecutively, right? So is it, we are not supposed to know the conclusion as of yet now as well, right? So yeah,
Yes.
so audience, stay tuned for how this is going to go out. The videos, from what I've seen on the YouTube page, come out up until the 31st itself. They're all like spaced out nicely, right? So out of this experience of working with all of these international folks and people who are obviously dedicated to their craft as well as, corporately sound-minded, how was the experience for you, Daca?
I think the experience overall was actually quite interesting because I've actually been exposed to quite a lot of esports in terms of, even setting up events and, taking part in events, hosting, casting, all these things I have had a very large experience in. So their take on it was very interesting. From my point of view, I feel like there were certain things that could have been done better, but it was a very safe approach that they took. But overall, I think it was a very interesting concept of doing an esports event, because that was the first time I did an esports event in that way, because most of it was recorded content. So because of that, there were a few, intricacies in terms of how it was supposed to be executed, and it was a bit confusing to me also here and there. But overall, the experience itself, it was great. And just being able to, take part in a Tencent event itself was a huge exposure. It was definitely something that hopefully I'll be able to put in my, repertoire moving forward into esports.
Yeah. To be fair, this from the waves that are being made by this event as of right now, that certainly might be the case in the near future. So you have nothing to worry about on that front, trust me. And I've seen that you've been working with a lot of people in the community as well. You even took part in SLT challenge, from what I've noticed a few days back. Fall Guys, if I'm correct, right? Fall Guys, and you also did another point event.
Yeah. So the Fall Guys tournament was actually a Dell event. So that was actually a series of competitions with other streamers. So we were 4 streamers on one side versus another 4 streamers on the other side. And we took part in a various amount of games. So I believe the first game we played was Splitgate. And then right after that, it was the new thing that hit basically the, how do you say it? Red light, green light. What was it called?
Crab games.
The Squid Games. Squid Games. Yeah, so it was Roblox Squid Game.
Games. Okay.
Yeah. So then after that, the third game was Fall Guys, if I remember correctly. So actually, that event itself was quite interesting, because initially I had done a Dell streaming game, like a Dell streaming tournament before, and it was very chill. Like it was chill in the sense that, a lot of us were just taking part to play for fun. But then somewhere down the line, between 2 streamers, I believe it was Gaming Sadhu and Tahik, the fans kind of got like really, really competitive. So that kind of put a little bit of pressure on us to kind of have to actually, try to win the game. And because of that, there were a few heated exchanges here and there. But overall, end of the day, a little bit of miscommunication here and there. But the event overall was great because obviously we won. But yeah, and then after that, it was the SLT Daca's challenge. Actually, yeah. So if you don't mind, I can basically talk about that a little more, if you don't mind, because I think it was a really great concept that I don't think anyone in Sri Lanka is really taking advantage of.
Yeah, Daca's challenge is something, both the Daca's challenge and the Dell streaming event. The reason why I mentioned it is because from Daca's challenge also happened in a live setting, right?
Yeah.
So the question that I was leading up to from bringing those two up was, in your mind, now that like the actual event itself has taken part and now we all know the conclusion and all of that, and they're coming out in consecutively, do you think this event would have been any different if it happened in a live setting? The PUBG All-Star challenge.
I think it would have been amazing if it would have been live, to be honest, because it was like, see, when it comes to things like recordings, you kind of have to be perfect on how you do things. So, where the intros, the outros, and then how you manage the interviews and everything is very planned. So nothing is technically natural. So that's one thing I've always felt about, the having live events. Even if you do make mistakes, it has that really nice flow to it. And, if there's something that is very funny that happens, it's always much more enjoyable, because you know that, okay, this is happening in front of a bunch of people. But when it comes to a recording, I'm not saying it's bad. I mean, obviously, when you're at that level, of event creation from the side of Tencent, them taking a very safe approach is definitely something that they would have heavily discussed anyway, because when you do tend to do things live, when there are technical difficulties, it can lead to huge delays. And I've experienced it firsthand. And when things go well, it obviously goes well, but when one thing goes wrong, many things go wrong. So I understand them taking that precaution. So going live would have been really amazing, because then it'll be a different setting. It's a different way of feeling the event itself. So when it's but that's basically
even on the mistake side, what I figured is when you're live with a bunch of people, it's not my mistake, it's our mistake. Even if the stream goes down, the chat still continues on. It's like a nice time by the time we come back, right? So I do understand on that front. But on this side, I guess from what you're saying, from the scale of the event itself, because I remember there were WODs with like different classes from each country, different languages. So I guess in order to do that in a live screen setting, I guess would have been a lot more intricate than needed. So in Tencent's and side, I guess I can understand, but like in my heart, I wish the event happened live. I have a soft spot for live events, Right. So with the conclusion of this event, and you guys worked with Tencent and in-house gaming or in-game housing?
In-game entertainment.
In-game entertainment. Is there a chance of something like this happening anytime soon again? Is there any word out on the street, or so they say?
The thing is, with the initial thing is, as long as the relationship is built, we can definitely look forward to more events in the future for sure. So now that the relationship is there, even if we wanted to do something locally with their assistance, it's basically the foundation is already laid. So I think we can, in terms of PUBG Mobile, of course, you can always look forward to a lot of esports, a lot of content, because of how booming it is in Sri Lanka. But hopefully with this, like with the fact that we have a Southeast Asian agency as well, hopefully we'll be seeing even PC games getting a few more international level tournaments. And, hopefully we can get, some Sri Lankan esports team representing as well. So I think in terms of the future for esports, everything is definitely looking good, given the situation right now. Even though we can't have LANs, if we can still have tournaments going, I mean, that's one thing that is really cool with esports, is the fact that doesn't matter whether it's like a pandemic or epidemic, as long as we can still keep growing, because that is something that's very easily accessible if you have the right tools. But yeah, definitely I think the future of esports is definitely looking good. So hopefully, instead of always seeing PUBG Mobile, hopefully we'll be seeing more PC games as well as other competitive esports seeing the spotlight in the upcoming years.
All right, that makes a lot more sense. With the way the scene has been growing, I actually wanted to know your opinion on this. So with the pandemic and how it hit the industry of gaming, it hit a lot of industries in the country, and most of them negatively. But esports has been one thing that hasn't really been affected. But it has there is still an effect to a certain point, right? Is it mostly positive or negative, in your opinion?
I mean, the thing is, it's like this. So when you take a LAN tournament where you have multiple games running off the same time, obviously you don't want that happening because of the pandemic that has spread out, because obviously there's a huge risk to having local tournaments like that. So, but the thing is, the only impact is the fact that a lot of people miss out on the fact that the social aspect of esports, I guess, is the best way to put it. But end of the day, most gamers are introverts. I mean, myself personally, I don't really like leaving the house too much. But the main point, coming back to the main point, is the fact that when you want to do something locally, you can't really organize multiple things at the same time, because you have to get the venue, you have to get the reservations for the PCs, etc. But when it comes to online, doing stuff online, the access to basically creating the event is very easy, because at the end of the day, you just need to get the content done, the awareness done, the registrations, and then everyone else who is joining from home. So they don't really need to pack things up, come from really far away to take part in events, because sometimes when we have local events in Colombo, we do see people showing up from Kandy and out of Colombo. So in this case, you're just playing from the comfort of your own home. So sometimes connections do matter, but end of the day, when you have an opportunity like that, it's very easy to constantly keep having tournaments. So as far as I remember, even this year, from January to even December, there's been events happening for esports very consistently. And it also, other than the esports companies itself, it also lets other companies, like you said, every other company is also affected by the pandemic or the pandemic, sorry. So even they have their own tournaments. So we see SLT having their own tournaments, we have Dialog having their tournaments, etc., etc. And even when you want to do a universities also, it's much easier to plan stuff because they don't need to get the venue, they don't need to get that much permission, they just need to host it and have it online. So events, in terms of events, there's been a huge increase. But in terms of the social aspect, that is lost. So there is, there's always a giveaway somewhere.
Pros and cons, yeah. Pros and cons. So yeah, there's like a positive increments and negative increments. Like that's understandable, especially with the way that the industry is going. The thing is, this particular event, All-Star, PUBG Mobile All-Star, happened around streamers, like with the main thing being influencers and streamers, right? And that's internationally, not just Sri Lanka counting. Do you think the next big thing will surround competitive players when it comes to the international scale of events? Do you think that could be a thing that we could look forward to, especially from with the team that we worked with, you guys worked with?
So it depends. Like if you're talking about PUBG Mobile, there's actually been quite a lot of international representation from Sri Lanka, but we want to be seeing them in like the big tournaments, like basically like the World Cups and stuff. So PMPL, etc. Those kind of tournaments are the ones, PMCO, those kind of tournaments are where we want to see our Sri Lankan team. So right now, I think we had one player who represented Sri Lanka during that tournament, but he was playing for a different team at the time. So I think he was playing for either Malaysian team or something like that. But I want to see a full Sri Lankan team going there. And I think we definitely have the opportunity to do that. We have the talented players. I mean, it's just not just the two teams that represented us during the PUBG Mobile Star Challenge. There's actually, there's about 20 teams that can actually go and, put up a really good performance in terms of international representation. But right now, even though all the qualifications are there and them taking part in tournaments are there, we're still waiting for a team to actually go and say, we are from Sri Lanka, we're a team to be, afraid of. But the one thing that would be definitely holding them back is the fact that, ping definitely matters because the way you see enemies, how fast you see them, how fast you can react. I mean, it doesn't matter how good of those things you have. If you don't have stable ping, if you don't have a decent ping, because most other countries, and I think this is something even quite well, is the fact that their internet providers are a lot better. I mean, I'm not taking a shot at Sri Lankan internet providers or anything like that, but
you're welcome.
This is it. Yeah, I mean, no, I mean, these are the tools we have, right? So even with, say, an SLT fiber connection, it'll be still very difficult to contest players from abroad, especially from other countries, because they are playing at 10 ping, 5 ping, some are even maybe playing at 1 or 2 ping. So that makes a huge difference. So because we are so like behind in terms of development for these areas, it makes being competitive also very difficult. And not just for PUBG Mobile. This goes for every single game we play, whether it's Valorant, Apex, doesn't matter. I mean, end of the day, the ping is an advantage. So having good internet is also just like having a really good PC. So, I mean, that is definitely going to be there.
So from okay, so I've seen two sides of this argument, right? Because ping really, it is a matter of importance, especially when it comes to how it's a physical limiter. It's like an actual limiter on our players, especially our competitive players, right? Do you think the solution lies within the network provider or the developers and the data centers that they're providing? Because the connection has to communicate to somewhere, right? From what I know, PUBG Mobile has a data center in India. So there's like in Indian servers, they have Indian servers, they have good ping, right? So do you think that now this is something that doesn't happen a lot in PC games as well, which is why the average Valorant player in Sri Lanka, for example, gets 150 ping also, right? So do you think that's something that developers on their end should be more mindful of? Or do you think our internet providers need to step their game up? Where is the line here?
I mean, I understand, right? Because if you are working for a huge company and you are releasing a game and you want to basically get as many people playing the game as possible, I don't think you want to invest a lot of time and resources in putting a server up in a country like Sri Lanka, because the numbers you can probably get from just one part of India and not even the entire side of India. So in this case, because we know, I mean, this is just basic logic, right? Because if you were a company, you'd want to target a location where you'll have multiple consumers, not just a handful of consumers. So if you have the resources to do that, why would you want to put it in something that is offhand? I mean, if you have excess, then I understand you can make that. But then end of the day, we as Sri Lankans should realize, okay, these companies, there's no way they're going to send an off branch into Sri Lanka and then create a server just because we can have good ping. That's not going to happen. That's not realistic. So the only thing we can realize, basically, the only thing we can kind of rely on is the fact that, if our internet providers step up their game, or, at least give us some sort of a connection where we have better speeds, better, upload, download, whatever. And that's the only thing we can rely on. So that's on them. But end of the day, we can't be complaining about the companies. We can't be complaining about the internet providers because they know more about the market than we do. So it's the same story. Why would you want to give really, really good internet at a, at a affordable price to players when there's only going to be a handful of them picking it up?
The package, yeah. Exactly. So that is a good point. Yes.
It's very difficult to make an argument for either the companies, the developers, or the internet providers.
Or the internet providers. So basically, the argument as a whole falls apart. Because if SLT ends up giving 100 gigabits per second, very unlikely, 100 gigabits per second for every person in the country, the data centers would be holding them back. Even if they create a data center in Sri Lanka, there's not enough of a player base to situate ourselves here. So yeah, it's an argument that falls apart in itself. So that's actually a good point. So when it comes to like the future of streaming, since you are one of the streamers that have been popping off in Sri Lanka, there's only a handful and you are one of them. With streaming opening opportunities like this that especially give exposure to like the Sri Lankan gaming scene towards the international scene as well, what's your future sight? What do you want streaming to like evolve to? What's the end game in when it comes to Sri Lankan streaming? Is it like the Los Angeles people who take part in Twitch rivals? Is that the vision for us, or is it something more grander like org?
I mean, end of the day, the thing is, like, obviously you want to be able to, like, my end goal as a basically an ex-esports professional player, as a caster, as a host, as someone who streams, I want gaming to be at the level where it is in other countries. So in other countries, you have esports organizations, they pick up content creators, which are streamers. Then you have the professional players playing under them. Then they get a certain, basically they make their living by gaming, which is not there in Sri Lanka yet. So hopefully, I think it'll still take a few more years until we are at a point. But for us to get to that point, we'll be really good at what we do. So even to have an organization that represents Sri Lanka, you don't want to have mediocre people going into international tournaments and doing, like basically being half-assed. You want them to be very competitive at the tier 1 level. So until that happens, it'll be difficult. But one thing they can do, especially with this surplus of streamers, is they need to find you need to find a way to get organizations to pick up streamers and then create content around them. So then in the future, we can have, like gaming orgs and also like gaming houses as well. So I don't know if you've heard of basically an organization called Offline TV. It's basically a bunch of streamers living in the same house, and they just create a bunch of content. And, that concept is still not in Sri Lanka. And I think if they did have that, and, you had streamers living together, they pay a certain rent and they just create content and get, income out of that, it's a huge deal, because there's so much content that can be created. There's so many interesting streamers that can come together, and that will be really entertaining for people to watch in general. So, that would probably be like the end goal that we want. So we want organizations, and end of the day, we want people to be able to earn a living through gaming. That's the end goal for the organizations and for me as well.
Honestly, yeah, the fact that you mentioned Offline TV, massive fan on my end, right? And they managed to make this formula work, and it's not exactly a hard formula as well, right? Like a house of streamers living together, each managing to help the other with content while also working together to create like an amazing main channel where the profits like spread. So the orgs take notes. These are actual steps that can be taken to ensure a future of streaming. And for example, our news outlets that like to exaggerate everything would have a field day with a streaming house, and that exposure then there in itself, right? So yeah, so future of streaming. So I guess we have your vision. I'm more excited to hear like what other people have in mind as well, because from like I myself like realized this from the get-go, because you all have been creating and fostering this community from the get-go. And we've had conversations with other streamers in the past about etiquette, about the way they inspire people, and how the way that you're telling your community how to grow as a person, all of that. In that sense, do you have any guidelines? Do you have anything that you need to say? For example, say, think that you're speaking to your audience right now. What are those guidelines that you would give to your viewers in terms of how they should be as people? Because that's something that a lot of people don't understand, that if you follow a particular streamer, you essentially influence them. They pick things up from you, habits of sorts, right? And this is a conversation that we had a while back. So I want to know your input in this. What would those guidelines be on your side?
So for me, my guidelines will always be, it's always based on how I was brought up. So it's always to be kind to people, be very careful with the words that you use, because end of the day, when you are streaming, there's a lot of, how do you say it? I mean, for me, on a daily basis, I always face like a decent amount of religious problems, just because of the fact that I'm Muslim, and there's certain things that comes with that. I mean, I understand from their point of view, but it's something that I deal with. But even then, I always want to encourage people to be nice and to always manage things on their own, right? Always try to be someone who doesn't seek help from others in any way, because when you get into streaming, it's very difficult to make it big. Like to get to a certain point where you can say, okay, I can earn enough to basically make this my job, is very difficult. So, most of the time what people do is they always look for a shortcut to getting either subscribers or followers, which will never work out for you, because end of the day, what you are getting is not your own followers or subscribers, it's someone else's. So for example, if I go and raid another streamer with say the 400, 500 people who watch me, a few of them will decide, okay, I like this guy, I'll follow him. And a few of them will be like, no, I don't like this guy. And then end of the day, even those ones will only watch you if I'm not streaming. And that's end of the day how it goes. So asking for help is something that's always going to be very difficult. So learn to deal with things on your own. And if you know that there's a certain situation now, especially something that I always have done is during this entire pandemic, is that I've always try to stop people from donating to me, because I know what going through the pandemic was like and how difficult it was for me and my family. And, especially in terms of monetary strain and, how much you have to spend when someone gets ill. So those kind of situations, I always tell them, you don't need to donate to me. You can just, watch. That's perfectly fine. Just enjoy what you're watching. The content is completely fine by me. But that's for me personally, because everyone else, it's their living or what they make their own monetary gains from. So, but for me, it's always about, make sure you're taking care of yourself first. And then you can look at, when you have extra money, if you have, if you're feeling generous, you can then donate. So that's always something that I tell my viewers as well. And I tell them to treat people nicely. But the main thing that I always tell my viewers is when someone does something wrong, don't be the first person to point your finger and say, oh, you screwed up. Always think about it from the other person's side and why they did it. So it's always like, when you flip a coin, usually people only look at the side that the coin lands on. They don't take a look at what the other side is experiencing. So it's very easy for us as streamers to target another streamer and be like, oh, he did this, he said this, so you guys should not like him. But end of the day, he could have a personal reason for saying it. There could be something that's externally affecting him. So always look at everyone's perspective and then try to make your decisions. If you don't have so like something you'll always see in any streamers basically when they're streaming is the fact that someone will always come in and be like, oh, this guy said this about you, or this guy said this about you, or this guy did this to you. But you always make a point to go and personally ask them face to face whether they did this or not, and then you can decide whether you want to have an issue with them or not, because most of the time people love drama, especially on live stream, because it's live, right? They love drama. They absolutely eat it up. It's such good content in a way, but it's not something I like. So I always try to avoid any sort of confrontation. It's not my problem, I always try to be nice to whoever. It doesn't matter whether it's a streamer or viewer, but people who deserve it, deserve it. So there have been enough and more times where I've kind of gone off on people on stream, just because of the fact that sometimes, I would be playing, say, something like Warzone or Apex, and I'll be playing with friends who mainly speak English. And then they'll just, say something really, like, I don't mind if people say anything about me. I don't mind people coming and telling me, calling me names, whatever, or to my face. I really give zero, you know what about it. But when you like call out a friend, that's like something else. They have no right to do that. So those are like certain small things that kind of piss me off. But other than that, of course, overall my streaming experience itself has been enjoyable. And if you want to get into streaming, just try to be positive. And the main thing I can tell you is don't look at viewer count. Don't worry about whether it's 100, 1,000, 0 people watching. Just play as if you're just playing the game, and if people love what you do, they'll just be attracted to you. So don't worry about it. But if you want to start building your base, or if you want to try building your own community, just start sharing it in groups. So groups where the game is basically very prominent, or in general, you just share it to whoever allows you to share it, because there are certain groups that will be like, no, don't share any of these content in our group. Then don't. So when you play something else instead, share it on that group, something like that. So, but you need to put in the effort. Everything is, you have to put in effort. Nothing comes to you for free. Nobody will build your base for you for free. So as long as you do that, you'll be fine. And obviously a lot of commitment.
Bugger. Okay, I'm turning off my view account today. Thank you very much. Now, for real, those are the kind of guidelines that I really wanted everybody else to hear. Ethical streaming is a conversation. Streaming has been popping off in Sri Lanka in general, but ethical streaming is a subject that people really need to talk about more often. So it's absolutely lovely to hear these words come out of you, especially Daca. That's like inspirational level. I'm going to hold it out for you right there. Now, as for the future of new and upcoming streamers and like audiences that are getting into watching streamers as a whole, I'm going to ask you a question that is probably going to make you think a bit. And I'm considered you might have a bias against the answer in discussion as well, because you already have your streaming elements prepared and preset. But I had to ask you, platform wise, Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch? What's the idea in your mind?
Oh, that's actually quite easy in terms of a question. So yeah, so it's easy. So here's the thing, right? So what audience do you want to capture? That would be the first question you need to ask yourself. Do you want it to be an international audience, or do you want it to be a local audience? So if you want it to be a local audience, don't even bother with Twitch. The main reason I'll tell you why Twitch for Sri Lanka won't work is because of the fact that there is no mobile package for it. Like if you take YouTube, for example, you pay this much, you get for a month's worth of data or month's free viewing at this quality for YouTube. Or same, you can get a Facebook package where you can unlimitedly watch anything on Facebook for this period of time until it expires. And then you just have to pay the minimal amount and then do it again. But for Twitch, there is no such thing, right? So if you want to create a stream where you're mainly speaking in Sinhala, where your crowd is local, etc., something like that, then obviously stick to either Facebook or YouTube, or you could do both, no problem at all. But just remember that the stats only show up on one. So if you want your stats to be a bit bigger, then just focus on one channel. Otherwise you can do both. So for me, I've always been used to doing multiple platforms at the same time. So even now, whenever I do stream, it's always going to be on Facebook and YouTube. And because I do mainly speak in Sinhala, because I've gotten used to it. I mean, I would love to do English streams, but the moment I do, the viewer count will drop from maybe 400 to maybe 10 or 20, just because of the fact that I'm speaking English. And that is something you have to come to terms with, because end of the day, you need to understand what your demographic is and what you are looking to grow into, and with the game, obviously. So if you are a new streamer and you want to kind of go at it at an international level, then your only platform you can do that is probably going to be Twitch. And from there also, what you'd want to do is just kind of take a look at these international gaming groups. There's enough and more. So also just be nice to whoever comes. People will come in and just point fingers at you and tell you how bad you are, how noob you are, the usual. But just take it with a grain of salt. Just put a smile, say thank you, and just go on with your stream. Those kind of people, anyway, you don't want them hanging around your chat or your stream. So anyone who is nice to you and who's willing to help you, maybe help you improve, you can keep those people around, no problem. End of the day, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about, like I said, I always tell people, don't worry about your view count or who's watching. So if you see something you don't like, don't be afraid to just kick them out of your stream or ban them permanently. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, if you want a positive community, you have to build a positive community. But that being said, there is enough and more negative streamers and negative communities as well, and that's basically another preference, because at the end of the day, people who watch streams, they watch it for entertainment. So if you want to go that route, you can go for it, but don't expect, people to help you when you need them to. So yeah, so other than that, so if you're looking to stream locally, you have to kind of either pick up a mobile game, play it on an emulator or on your phone, doesn't matter, and share it to groups, and then basically stick to Facebook or YouTube. But if you want to start your career on Twitch, then you have a little bit more exposure you can work with, especially if you want to do it in English, because I'm yet to see someone who speaks only in English and is a successful streamer in Sri Lanka, and I'd be very happy if it does happen. And if I do see that, I'll also be willing to make the switch. I mean it. I'll be very much ready to switch it up. But given the demographic and how things are going right now, you'll have to stick to singular. But that's basically the answer to your question. Is very easy, Manu. It's basically just depends on whether it has a mobile package or not. So that's the basic.
So from what I gathered, because I checked the protocol list that they have in the Game Right package that they provide in SLT, I think it covers Twitch. It definitely does for streaming, but for viewing as well, I think it covers Twitch. So, but then again, it's on a mobile package, so that's on the PC gamer side. But audience-wise, I absolutely do agree with you because, oh God. Okay. Moving completely away, because I wanted to have this conversation about platform, because a lot of people have different answers. For example, you have one particular answer that completely mirrors from the answers that would come, for example, from me and Snowy, who both work kind of towards from the side of Decibel. So it's a nice perspective to have. And this is probably going to be the last question of this interview. I've had a lovely time with you. Right? You said like some things that like are logical, but some things that are like absolutely inspirational. So I hope everybody takes them into account. Is there anything that you would like to say to the general populace? Because we know your perspective as a streamer, as a person, as essentially an influencer of the general masses. Do you have anything that you want to say to the general masses in this troublesome time?
I mean, the thing is, for me, I have always been someone who okay, so when I was in school, I used to have a huge crowd of people, and I used to always be able to, talk to whoever. It doesn't matter whether I run into the rowing team or the, rugby team, doesn't matter. But then after I left school, see, the thing is, when you're in school, everything is kind of comfortable, and, you have a lot of people around you already that you can just hang around and talk to. You can have a group of, people on WhatsApp and just, post stickers all day. It doesn't matter. But end of the day, what you need to do is, if you want to get through really difficult times, especially not even just when you're in school, but even when you're out of school, have a handful of friends. You don't need to have 100, you don't need to have 200 friends, just even have 1 or 2, doesn't matter. Have a bunch of really good friends you can talk to about anything. So whether things are troubling you, they don't have to give you really good advice, because most of the time, most of us want is just someone to listen to what we are going through and just say, don't worry, you'll be fine, right? And end of the day, that seems to be the case for a lot of these people. Like for a lot of people who are struggling, especially those who are, socially outgoing and love to, meet people every week on a Friday, go drinking. It doesn't matter. I mean, end of the day, if you have really good friends, they will definitely help you through your, difficult times. And as long as you have a really good support system, you can get through anything. But end of the day, you need to build a mentality to the fact that, things are going to be tough. Given the situation, you need to understand what's going on around you, and given how things are going right now, it's only going to get tougher. It's not going to get easier. So having a very strong foundation of support is always going to be a very big key. But if you're mentally tough, you'll always be good. Because I mean, to be honest, this might be a little how do you say it, dangerous to say, like, okay. Yeah, it'll be a little bit controversial. But the thing is, when we were growing up, right, we were like, most of the time we did something wrong, we get beaten up. I think you can relate, Manul. Even for me, myself, I do something wrong, I get the belt, but then end of the day, because of that, my sense of right and wrong is really good. And my, basically how I want myself to appear and the things that I believe in are all positive. And, that's perfectly fine. I mean, everyone is different. You can't have everyone to be the exact same, right? But end of the day, we were brought up in a culture where this is obviously before the 2000s, I guess, before things, kind of escalate. Like right now, you can see Even for sports, you can see parents walking out onto the field, talking to the coaches directly, etc., etc., and trying to get that influence going. But in our time, it was either you're good or you're out. There is no one is going to walk onto the field and go and talk to the coach and be like, why is my son not playing? It doesn't work like that anymore. But now it's like that. You do something where you either scold the child or you put him out for whatever reason, and the parents aren't afraid to go and kind of spoil their child in that sense. And end of the day, you need to realize that if it's something which you're doing alone, it doesn't matter. If you're doing it alone, you're doing it alone. So then that's all on you. Whether you perform really well, it's on you. Whether you do really badly, it's on you. But when you're in a team aspect of things, one person can be the reason for the entire team losing. So you're not holding responsibility just for yourself. You're holding responsibility for everyone. So I think, people just need to learn that life is not easy. And, eventually people learn that, because some people have it kind of delivered onto them on a silver platter. But when they get exposed to the real world, when they need to go out and start working, and how certain people are cunning, certain people are smart, some people will know how to manipulate you, they will lead you into doing things you don't want to do, and peer pressure. So be very careful of peer pressure. I mean, if there's something you don't want to do, just say no. I think that's the biggest thing nowadays. It's just because everyone on social media is like, oh, do this because it's cool. You don't need to do it if you don't like it. You just need to realize that the moment people realize things that this is not something I want to do, it sounds simple. But the moment you realize that, it's something that you can easily figure out for yourself, because end of the day, you are responsible for your own life. So, I mean, it's just very small things that you need to do to kind of take care of yourself and make sure everything around you is good. Because certain people will have different responsibilities than me. Because obviously me being a child with two other brothers, so I have an older brother and a younger brother as well. There could be people who are alone, which means they have more responsibilities, because they have the weight of their family on them, the mother, the father. They need to make something of themselves. All this pressure will come as a like a single child. So that's why you always need to have a good support system. And I'm very, very happy to say that I have a very strong support system in my family and my friends. So yeah, that's basically it for me. I mean, for me, to be honest, the 2 years where the pandemic hit didn't really affect me that much, because anyway, in general, I like to, kind of chill at home and do my work. And I go out on occasion just to meet my friends. So, I mean, I'm perfectly fine, but I don't know how it is for others. But end of the day, if you do want to do things like that, you need to have a good support system, because even if you are social, you need to head out and meet people that you like. Nobody goes out to meet people they don't like. So yeah.
Strong mental, good support system, close handful of friends will make your world a better place. I get what you mean, honestly. I hope people need to hear that. The people that do need to hear that heard that. It's been an absolutely good time talking to you, Daca. I feel like you talked to my soul there for a second there with the last bit. Yes. So you guys should definitely keep an eye out for the PUBG All-Star Challenge videos that are coming out up until the 31st on the YouTube.
It'll be out on the 25th and the 26th, Manu.
Until the end of 26th?
No. So the first, the day one will be coming out on the 25th, and day two will be coming out on the 26th.
Understood. So 25th to 26th, you heard the man itself. The entire series will be coming out on the 31st, right? From what I've noticed in the YouTube channel. So yeah, if you guys want to see a competitive field full of fun, wonderful personalities like our dear old Daca here, we will link the YouTube channel on the description of our video. And Daca, would you like to tell everybody where they can find you?
Oh, so if people want to find me, they can find me on Facebook as Daca Streaming. Or you can just go and search for DecibelLK, and you should be able to find it on Facebook. And on YouTube, it just goes as Daca Streaming. And usually when you search it, it does usually come out on top, I believe. So yeah, that's basically my socials. I mean, I don't think anyone knows my Instagram or anything like that, so I'll leave it at that.
If you do come join one of his streaming sessions and ask it in the chat, I'm pretty sure he'll happily give you his. I'm kidding. Yes, it's been a lovely time, but we're calling it a day. Thank you for everybody who has been sticking with this long yet inspirational interview of ours. Have a good day, and Decibel says Merry Christmas.